back-to-school lunch ideas at livewell.fosters.ky to turn fresh and healthy into full and focused.
And any parents hoping to spend more time at home, there's always fresh delivery from Foster's Go.
Think you got all of that? We'll test you on it later.
Get ready for a great fresh start with Foster's.
Money Sense is brought to you by the Chamber Pension Plan. For further information, visit chamberpension.ky.
The Cayman Islands Chamber of Commerce Pension Plan. We're here for you. As a member of the Chamber Pension Plan, depending on your age, you are invested in one of our 6 life cycle funds, each with a different investment allocation and level of risk. But did you know you have the option of choosing a different fund than what you were originally enrolled in? If you are looking for less risk, simply advise your employer to reallocate your contributions. Remember that pensions are for the long term, designed to maximize your retirement funds. If you have any questions with regards to the fund you are currently in or why you might want to change, please contact us at 745-7630 or admin@pensions.ky. The Chamber Pension Plan. We're here for you.
Money Sense, bringing an informed financial perspective to the Cayman community.
What is the secret to valuing gold? Yes, ladies and gentlemen, on today's show, a very special one, you will learn what the long-time secret sauce is to knowing what the value of gold is. Or to put it another way, why aren't gold prices higher right now? Isn't there an apocalypse going on? There's a war between the United States and Russia in the Ukraine, effectively. The world is heading towards recession again. Consumer prices are through the roof, high single digits, low double digits around the world. Energy prices in Europe are ghastly, miserable. People in Europe are being told to prepare for a cold winter where they will not be able to afford to heat their houses. Dreadful. Oh, and then let's not forget that the people of China, Beijing, don't appreciate where the Speaker of the House for the United States is vacationing, heading out to Taiwan. No, threats worldwide. And what is gold doing? It too is on vacation. $1,757 per troy ounce in US dollars. Ladies and gentlemen, that's low relative to where we were in March of 2022, where it was about $2,000. In August 2020, we were around $2,000 per troy ounce. July 2011, September 2012, prices were higher all the way back then. So why is gold taking time off? Isn't it an inflation hedge? Isn't it a hedge against against Armageddon? My name is Emil Kalinowski, and you are, of course, listening to Money Sense on 89.9 in Grand Cayman and 93.9 in Little Cayman and Cayman Brac. Welcome, everyone. My name is Emil Kalinowski, as I said, and I'm going to reveal the secret sauce to you today. And I'll go ahead and just do it right now in case you're busy and you're not going to be able to listen. Real rates. That's the answer, ladies and gentlemen. The real rate of return in the economy. Okay, we'll develop that idea over the rest of the show. But first, how are we going to be able to come up with an answer here? How do we know the answer is real rates? Well, what we'll do is we will correlate the US dollar price of gold over some period of time to a independent variable, a variable that is determining the price of gold. So gold is the dependent variable. Now we're going to identify an independent variable and see what the correlation is between the two of them. Now, ladies and gentlemen, I went to a very, very lousy school in the United States called Arizona State University, where I majored in margaritas and bikinis and things like that. Also finance. But there's not much difference between margaritas, finance, and, well, bikinis, I suppose, at least at Arizona State University. Nevertheless, I still learned what the word correlation is. Not everyone had a chance to go to Arizona State University, so let me just explain what it is. Correlation is a little bit like having a dance partner. And if you are dancing with someone who's very good and is highly correlated to you, then when you do your twirl, kick, left step, 1, 2, 3, kick, high kick, you turn around, they're right there with you. They are moving in sync. They are synchronized with you. And if their correlation is, let's say, 1, it goes from -1 to 1. So if their correlation is 1, then you and this other person will be on Dancing with the Stars. You will win. You are dead on. Now, there's another kind of correlation, -1. That's also miraculous. That means that your partner is doing the mirror opposite of you. Every move you make, step, high kick, twirl, step, they're doing the exact same thing in reverse, and they're going to find themselves on the other side of the room. No doubt many of you are wondering, well, what kind of dancer are you, Emil? I'm not a great dancer. My correlation to dancing is 0.3, let's say. So I'll be in the general vicinity of you, but not step in step with you. There's 70% more correlation or explanatory power that I could be doing. Okay, let's use some actual numbers here so it makes some sense. So when we want to explain the price of gold, we can say, well, what correlates it? What drives it? I'm going to give you two variables to consider, ladies and gentlemen. The US dollar, that makes sense, right? Gold is a currency, and it's denominated in US dollars often. Well, it could be denominated in euros and other things like that, but we often think of gold in terms of US dollars. So you would think the more valuable the dollar, the less valuable gold. So they should be inversely correlated. There should be a very strong correlation, right? Or real rates. Okay. Now, so we're going to look at the relationship between these two variables over some period of time. But the question, ladies and gentlemen, is what time length is appropriate? Should we look at, right? If I look at the relationship between gold and the dollar and real rates of return in the economy, the real interest rate, should I look at it over the last week? No, that's not enough time. The last millennia, that might be enough time, but we don't have data that goes back that far. And surely things have changed since the year 1000. TikTok, for example. That's a big difference. So, what appropriate time period, ladies and gentlemen, should we go back to? Well, seeing as is we are in the last days of August, may I suggest to you that we go back to August 9th, 2007. Not August 9th, 2022, but August 9th, 2007. I think it may be the explanatory date of the rest of this century. Yes, much in the same way as August 4th, 1914 helped explain what happened in the rest of the 20th century. I think August 9th, 2007 might be looked back upon by future historians in a similar way. August 4th, 1914 is, of course, the day that the guns of August first kicked off. The First World War began. And the First World War, people are still debating what started it. It's hard to know. People are still debating it, but what we do agree upon is that it led to World War II, that it led to the Cold War, and that didn't end until 1992. Incredible. An entire century explained by August 4th, 1914. And I'm not being melodramatic, ladies and gentlemen, when I say that August 9th, 2007 was the beginning of this century. I'm going to turn to Larry Elliott, the economics editor for our lovely British magazine. I can't believe I don't have the name. Oh, The Guardian. Here it is, ladies and gentlemen, The Guardian. So on August 5th, 2008, here's what Mr. Larry Elliott wrote. It was, quote, however, the day the world changed. As far as financial markets are concerned, August 9th, 2007 has all the resonance of August 4th, 1914. It marks the cutoff point between an Edwardian summer of prosperity and tranquility and the trench warfare of the credit crunch, the failed banks, the petrified markets, the property markets blown to pieces by a shortage of credit. Yes, The global financial crisis began on August 9th, 2007, and I suggest to you, ladies and gentlemen, we haven't solved that crisis. It continues to this day. You can explain many of the things that have happened in the last 15 years to that first domino back then. And so what better point to go back to and use our correlations than that point, the beginning of the century. This is the most relevant time period, the last 15 years. So, the US dollar, ladies and gentlemen, what is the correlation between the price of gold on a daily basis and the US dollar? 0.32, 0.32. That means you are dancing with Emil Kalinowski, your Money Sense host. That's not a wonderful experience. 0.32. So the dollar moves up, and that explains 0.32%, 32% of the move in gold prices. We can do better, ladies and gentlemen. We can do dancing with the financial stars better. The real yield, the real interest rate has, since August 9th, 2007, a negative 0.88% correlation. Yes, that's unbelievable, ladies and gentlemen. 88% explanatory power between the movements of real rates and the price of gold since August 9th, 2007. So it's inverted, meaning as real rates rise, as the return on the economy is higher, the value of gold is lower. Now, I'm using a time period since August 9th, 2007. I also picked a few other dates. January 1st, 2018, that's when the economy started to slow before we headed into the COVID crisis. Negative 0.87. So the correlation is very similar over many different time periods, and that's what we're going to use to explain the price of gold, ladies and gentlemen, going forward. Now, we're coming up on a commercial break, but after this commercial break, what I'm going to do is I'm going to explain why the price of gold is not higher, why it's not moving, why it was rising into the worst of the corona crisis, then went sideways essentially for 2 years, and then recently started to fall, even though things seem to be getting dicier. And that's because real rates have been rising, ladies and gentlemen. Yes. So after the commercial, we will come back. We'll do a little bit of a discussion just to make sure you know what nominal rates are, their relationship to real rates, and inflation. It's those three variables: nominal rates, inflation, and real rates. And once we understand that, we'll be able to understand the price of gold. But for now, for the first half, I hope you have learned that it is not the value of the US dollar that determines gold, even though it seems like it may be. Nope, real rates. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, see you after the commercial.
The Cayman Islands Chamber of Commerce Pension Plan. We're here for you. The current pension holiday is set to expire September 30th. Employers and employees will be required to recommence the legally specified pension contributions effective with October earnings. If you have any questions or concerns, please visit our website at chamberpension.ky or contact us at admin@pensions.ky. The Chamber Pension Plan, representing large and small employers in all sectors of Cayman's economy.
This is
Money Sense, bringing an informed financial perspective to the Cayman community. Brought to you by the CFA Society Cayman Islands.
And now, more Money Sense.
Welcome back, everyone. My name is Emil Kalinowski, and we are discussing the real price of gold. How do you determine what gold prices will do in the future? How do you know what they're worth, what it's worth, the price of gold? How do you determine it? In the first part of the show, we talked about correlation and dancing, and we talked about how the US dollar is not the explanatory power behind the price of gold. What it is are real rates. Real rates are explanatory. And so for the rest of the half of this show, we're going to find out why the price of gold isn't much higher. After all, China, Russia, the United States, everyone's arguing with each other. The economy doesn't look like it's in great shape. Consumer prices are so high. Why isn't this safe haven worth much more? It's about $1,700 per troy ounce right now. It used to be worth $2,000. You would think it should be worth much more. Well, the reason why is because real rates are rising. And if real rates are rising, then the price of gold should be falling. That's what we learned in the first half of the show, that there is an incredible, almost 90% inverse correlation between the real rate of interest and the price of gold in US dollar terms. Now, ladies and gentlemen, let us move forward into the 2018 through 2022 time period. And we're going to break down three things. We're going to break down the nominal rate, the inflation outlook, and the real yield. The nominal rate is what you hear about when you turn on your television, you read your financial newspapers, or you go to the bank. That is what the bank will pay you nominally at the headline rate. So over here, let's see, in the Cayman Islands, let's say we're being paid 1%, 2%. That's the nominal rate. Not too great. Well, then we may think, why don't we go to Venezuela or Argentina? The nominal rate there is fantastic. 20%, 30%, 50%. Well, I think we instinctually know why not. Because the nominal rate is not the real rate. The nominal rate includes the real rate plus inflation. And in Argentina and in Venezuela, inflation is more than the banks are willing to pay you. So the inflation rate, let's say over there, is 50%. But the banks are only going to pay you 30% on your deposits. So you are actually losing negative 20% per year in our little stylized example. And so you have a negative real rate. Now, ladies and gentlemen, you don't have to be a fancy Arizona State University graduate. I hope you know I'm trying to make fun of my school here. You don't have to be a fancy graduate of finance to instinctually know how valuable gold is in Argentina and Venezuela, where real rates are so negative. That's the key, ladies and gentlemen. Remember, there's an inverse correlation. If the real rate of return is negative, then the value of gold will be worth much, much more than it is in somewhere where real rates are positive and rising. Okay, let us zoom back to the advanced economies. I hope that example was helpful. In the advanced economies, the rate that we all look to determine what the global real rate of return is the American 10-year U.S. Treasury bond. So what does the government pay on a U.S. Treasury bond for the next 10 years? That's the standard. Some people call it the risk-free rate, but we won't be saying that on this show. Surely we know there's no such thing as a risk-free rate. But that's our standard, our anchor there. And what is the nominal 10-year bond made up of? Well, it's the nominal yield that the market demands it is paid, the inflation outlook, and then the real yield. Well, ladies and gentlemen, would you believe it well, here's the key, ladies and gentlemen. The key is that the inflation outlook has remained relatively steady for the last 4 years, according to this, one of the deepest markets in the world. Now you may say, are they crazy? What is wrong with them? After all, even in just the United States, not looking at Europe, we know that consumer price increases are rising. And yet, in early January 2018, the inflation outlook was 2%. And right now, 2.25% or so. So it's a little bit higher. Yet at the same time, we're getting CPI readings in the United States alone. Other places they're higher, 9%, 8.4%, 8.5%, 8.5%, 7.9% going back in time. Why is this very deep, very sophisticated market saying that the inflation outlook is 2.25% to 2.5%, because it's looking over a 10-year period. And also, it is looking through supply disruptions and demand surges. As we all know, during the corona crisis, things were turned off, turned on, turned on, turned off. Some countries, China for example, were saying, well, we're very serious about it, we're very concerned, we want to achieve zero COVID, so we're turning off all of Shanghai and nothing can go in and out. You can imagine how a global economy built on efficiency was not resilient when it faced these sort of shocks repeatedly, one after another. And what happened? Supply shortages, demand surges. All of a sudden, people around the world were not able to consume services. They were not allowed to go outside, or they didn't want to, but they could consume goods. Goods shot through the roof. Supply fell through the floor. The consequence? Consumer price increases. More recently, we've had war. Ukraine, Russia, energy, grains, foods, again, through the roof. And so what we're experiencing for the last several couple of years here are supply-demand imbalances that the market is saying, we're going to look through this. We believe this will settle itself out, and over the next 10 years, we don't believe there will be these continuing shocks. And so that's why they're predicting only 2.5%. And would you believe it, ladies and gentlemen, that surveys of individuals also come in with the same expectations? For example, in New York, there's something called the Federal Reserve Bank of New York, and it asks people all across the United States, what's your outlook for the next 3 years ahead? 3.5%. Now, ladies and gentlemen, over the next year, it's more along the lines of 6%. So the people are saying next year, 6%, but over the next 3 years, 3.5%. There's something called the University of Michigan survey that does the same thing. Over the next year, 5-6%. But over the next 5 years, 3-ish% is what people have been saying, not just recently, but for years. For years. So the events of the last couple of years have not convinced markets and consumers that there is a world of rising and accelerating consumer prices in the future. Maybe everyone's wrong. Maybe. Okay, fair enough. But that's just letting you know that that is the outlook. The outlook is one of stability on the consumer price increase front, because they don't believe that it is a perpetual supply and demand shock ahead of us. Good people can disagree on that. Maybe we are entering into perpetual supply and demand shocks. Perhaps. But the key that I want you to come away with, ladies and gentlemen, is that since 2018 and even longer, both markets and consumers have had a relatively stable outlook on consumer price increases over the long term. Now, how does this tie back to gold and determining being able to go to your next cocktail party or your next cricket match or your next swim meet in the ocean and being able to tell people, hey, I know where gold prices are going? It ties in this way, ladies and gentlemen. Remember, nominal rates, that's the headline rate we're all told about, minus the inflation outlook equals real rates. And real rates determine gold prices. So if our middle variable, if the inflation outlook is effectively unchanging over the long term, then it is the change in nominal rates that will determine real rates and therefore gold prices. And so what has been happening recently, ladies and gentlemen? Nominal rates have been falling since let's say October 2018, and real rates were falling as well because the inflation outlook was relatively steady. Why were nominal rates falling since October 2018? Because the global economy was slowing down very badly. Then we hit the COVID crisis. During that entire time period, gold prices were rising. So from October 2018 until March 2020, during the worst of the crisis, or the beginning of the crisis with the corona, gold prices were falling in line as real rates were falling. Real rates were falling because of nominal rates were falling. Then they kept falling because nobody knew what in the world was going on with the flu, with the sneezing, with the coughing. When did it stop? August. By August 2020, we had a sense, we had a feeling that it wasn't the plague. It wasn't Captain Trips from Stephen King's The Stand and the apocalypse was upon us. And the economy started to rebound. And ladies and gentlemen, would you believe it that both nominal rates stopped falling and real rates stopped falling? And that was the peak of gold prices, August 2020. Ever since then, through, let us say, December of 2021, real rates have been steady. They've been steady. They've been going sideways, just as gold prices have been going sideways. Sideways movement. Now, come March 2022, all of a sudden we've seen nominal real yields leap higher. Real yields leap higher. Why? Because inflation outlook has been steady. That middle variable has been not changing. Why have real rates and nominal rates been leaping higher while gold prices have been falling? Because the Federal Reserve in the United States and other central banks around the world are saying we are going to be raising interest rates. We will raise interest rates. We did raise interest rates by 0.25%, then by 0.5%, then by 75 basis points, which is 0.75%, then another 75 basis points, which is 0.75%. So the central banks are saying, we see these consumer price increases, and we believe that if we raise interest rates, we'll bring them down. And that is what has pushed nominal yields up, mostly. Would you believe it, ladies and gentlemen, that the last announcement by the central bank that they are raising interest rates was met by the market with disbelief? They said, we don't believe you'll be raising interest rates for very much longer. We believe that rates will be falling. You'll be cutting rates soon enough because we believe, looking forward into the future, that we are headed into a recession. And nominal yields began to fall down. More recently, they've picked up a little bit, but they're still in a downtrend. Those nominal yields falling, real rates are falling, gold prices started to rise. And the outlook, ladies and gentlemen, is to look at real rates. Assume that the inflation outlook is steady, as it has been for years, because it's looking for the long term. And look where the market is sending nominal rates. And that will tell you where real rates are going, and that will tell you where gold prices are heading, in the opposite direction of real rates. And ladies and gentlemen, I have run out of time. I hope this was useful. I hope you can go to your next cocktail party and regale your fellow partygoers with this secret, the secret to knowing how gold prices will be valued. It's been a pleasure, and I can't wait to talk to you again in a fortnight.
Money Sense is brought to you by the Chamber Pension Plan. For further information, visit chamberpension.ky.
The Cayman Islands Chamber of Commerce Pension Plan. We're here for you. As a member of the Chamber Pension Plan, depending on your age, you are invested in one of our 6 life cycle funds, each with a different investment allocation and level of risk. But did you know you have the option of choosing a different fund than what you were originally enrolled in? If you are looking for less risk, simply advise your employer to reallocate your contributions. Remember that pensions are for the long term, designed to maximize your retirement funds. If you have any questions with regards to the fund you are currently in or why you might want to change, please contact us at 745-7630 or admin@pensions.ky. The Chamber Pension Plan. We're here for you.
Been listening to Money Sense right here on Radio Cayman. 8 o'clock is our time right now. This time check brought to you by our friends at Foster's.
All right, class. Pay attention. School is back in session, and it's time to get back to school ready with Foster's.
Foster's is embracing school spirit with all the essentials like backpacks, stationery, lunch kits, and more.
And online, treat yourself to our useful back-to-school lunch ideas at livewell.fosters.ky to turn fresh and healthy into full and focused.
And any parents hoping to spend more time at home, there's always fresh delivery from Foster's Go.
Think you got all of that? We'll test you on it later.
Get ready for a great fresh start with Foster's.
The voice of the Cayman Islands.
89.9 FM in Grand Cayman and 93.9 FM in Cayman Brac and Little Cayman.